Reading to Write, Becoming a Critical Reader. In English 1101, one of our goals is to become a critical reader. Critical reading, the definition is the ability to evaluate the ideas of others, to form judgments, and to develop original viewpoints. Critical reading also comes into play when we begin incorporating sources into our papers, which will be much later in our class. How to read rhetorically. Here are some questions. I think generally we tend to read rhetorically by nature. For example, you probably looked at the class syllabus and you're, okay, how many tests are we going to have? How many papers are we going to write? You had a specific purpose for looking at the syllabus. This is an example of reading rhetorically. So, these are some questions that you can ask yourself. What is the author's purpose for writing the text? What is your purpose for reading the text? What knowledge or experience does the reading demand? Does your experience meet that demand? This one comes into play if you may find a source that you wish to incorporate in your paper, but perhaps he's a nuclear physicist and the language and the key terms that he or she is using are just way over your head. So you need to make sure that your experience meets the demand of that particular essay that you're reading. Another question, what are the key parts of the text? Look for thesis sentences. And what is your strategy? What is your purpose for reading this? Is it entertainment? Are you reading a story? Do you need to get a certain amount of information from the source or the essay in order to incorporate it, synthesize it into your own paper? So these are some questions that you can ask yourself. When reading rhetorically, these are a few things that you need to seek out. I kind of touched on a few of these already. Number 1, the thesis statement. Number 2, the key points of the message. And 3, the support provided for each point. Also identify what needs to be said and what is purposefully left unsaid. When you approach number 3, this gives you an idea if your writer is biased. For example, if you're reading an article that the NRA has published, then you know that it's going to be pro-gun. So they may purposefully leave out statistics for perhaps guns that have harmed an individual in the home who was not an intruder. These sorts of things. So what is left out of the essay is almost as important as what is inside of the essay as you read it. So pay attention to those things. Reading visual texts. A photograph, advertisement, diagram, graph, charts, all of these things give you indications of the type of work that you are reading. For example, we have a picture of Alice in Wonderland. You look at it, the picture is very whimsical. You know that it's going to be a whimsical text. So, when you look at these visual cues, like for example the cover of this H.P. Lovecraft book, man, you know this can't be a friendly, soft puppy that you want to pet. This guy's got tentacles and he is bad news and he's coming to eat your face off. So you can look at the picture and you know that this text is probably going to be something super scary. So here's a little checklist that you can look at. Why was the visual aid created? What kind of audience is it aimed at? Obviously, this is aimed at those who love horror. So look at these things. These are good indicators. Lastly, annotation is so important, and I do this. All of my books look like this. They're just a hot mess. There's pen scribbles and highlights and all sorts of things. But when you annotate, you really do carry on a conversation with the text in the marginal notes. You make yourself notes. I encourage you all to annotate your texts, especially if you find a source that you're going to use. Print it off. Print it off and make a hard copy and underline and highlight. And I think annotation is an important part of research or just reading in general. So